Ladies and gentlemen, I used to think being strong meant never falling apart. That if I could hold it all together, stay in control, and keep everyone comfortable, I was winning at life. But then life happened, grief, failure, burnout, heartbreak, and I learned something that changed everything. Strength isn't about how we avoid the fall, it's about how we rise afterward. Not polished, not perfect, but more honest, more grounded, and yes, stronger than before. We often confuse strength with invulnerability. We're taught from a young age that to be strong is to push through, to hold it all together, to be unaffected. But in my research, after spending over 2 decades studying courage, shame, vulnerability, and resilience, I've learned something radically different. Real strength begins where our armor ends. It starts when we allow ourselves to be seen, fully, deeply, truthfully, especially when we're scared, uncertain, or hurting. Vulnerability has a reputation problem. We associate it with weakness, failure, and exposure, but the data tells a different story. Vulnerability is the birthplace of courage. It's the heart of innovation, creativity, trust, and belonging. Think about the most courageous people you know, those who faced loss, heartbreak, disappointment, or change, and still choose to show up with open hearts. That's not weakness. That's extraordinary strength. We've been knocked down by life, by loss, by betrayal, or burnout. Our instinct is often to protect ourselves. We armor up emotionally, we numb, we hide, we blame, or we pretend everything's fine. And in the short term, that armor can feel like safety. But over time, it becomes a prison. We can't selectively numb emotions. When we shut down vulnerability to avoid pain, we also shut ourselves off from joy, connection, and growth. Being stronger than before doesn't come from denying the fall. It comes from being willing to engage with it, head on, heart open. That means acknowledging what hurt, naming the losses, sitting in discomfort without trying to fix it too quickly. It's in that space between the breakdown and the breakthrough that we build true resilience. Not the kind of resilience that says, I'm fine when everything's not fine, but the kind that whispers, this is hard and I'm still here. The courage to be vulnerable isn't something you either have or you don't. It's a daily practice. It's choosing to tell the truth about what you need, even when your voice shakes. It's asking for help. It's setting boundaries. It's having hard conversations with people you care about, and perhaps most courageously, it's letting yourself be loved and seen, especially when you feel least worthy of it. We allow ourselves to be vulnerable. We unlock connection, not just with others, but with ourselves. We learn to trust our own voice, to listen to our emotions as data, not directives, to stop hustling for worthiness, and instead show up with authenticity. That's where our strength deepens, not in pretending we're unaffected, but in honoring how deeply we feel. I've seen this in boardrooms and classrooms, in military units and hospital halls. The strongest leaders, partners, parents, and creators are the ones who are willing to say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm here. They're the ones who understand that courage isn't a status or a performance, it's a choice. A willingness to step into uncertainty with our values intact and our hearts exposed. Stronger than before, let's not imagine someone untouched by struggle. Let's picture someone who's been through it, who's fallen, grieved, questioned everything, and still found the courage to stand back up. Not with walls, but with wisdom. Someone who's learned that true strength is tender, not tough, that it's found not in the mask, but in the mirror. That every time we choose to show up honestly in our mess and our magic, we're rewriting what strength actually looks like. Being stronger than before doesn't mean skipping over the hard parts of life. It means going through them with our eyes and hearts open. We live in a culture that prizes resilience, but rarely talks about what it takes to truly rise. We celebrate the comeback story, but we rush past the messy middle, the part where things fall apart, and we're not sure how to get back up. My research on the process of rising strong has shown that transformation doesn't happen when we pretend we're okay. It happens when we reckon with our emotions, rumble with our stories, and create a new, more courageous ending. The first step in this process is what I call the reckoning. This is where we get curious about our emotions. It's that moment when something happens, we fall short, get hurt, lose something or someone we love, and we feel all the feelings: anger, shame, disappointment, fear. Most of us are tempted to bypass this part. We distract ourselves, we deny our pain, we try to numb, but the reckoning requires us to slow down and ask, what am I feeling and why? This isn't about wallowing, it's about acknowledging that our emotions hold valuable data. They're trying to tell us something about what matters to us, what we believe, and where we're feeling threatened or unseen. Once we're brave enough to face those feelings, we move into the rumble. And this is where the real work happens. The rumble is where we examine the stories we're telling ourselves about what happened. The human brain is wired for story. We are meaning-making machines. When something painful occurs, our brain immediately starts filling in the gaps. They don't respect me. I'm not good enough. I always mess this up. These stories feel true, but often they're incomplete or distorted by shame and fear. In the rumble, we write down our first draft of the story, raw, emotional, unfiltered. Then we ask the hard questions. What do I know for sure? What assumptions am I making? Where might I be exaggerating or taking things personally? Who might I need to talk to for clarity? Rumbling with our stories takes courage because it means letting go of being right in order to get it right. It means trading blame and certainty for truth and accountability. This is where we build resilience, not by powering through, but by getting honest. And sometimes honesty means owning our part in the mess. Sometimes it means recognizing where we've been hurt and need to set boundaries. Always, it requires self-compassion, because without it, we can't move forward with integrity. The final phase is the revolution. This is where we take what we've learned from the reckoning and the rumble and integrate it into how we live, love, lead, and parent. It's not a flashy overnight change. It's a slow, steady redefinition of who we are and how we want to show up. The revolution is when we start living from a place of grounded confidence, not because we've avoided struggle, but because we've walked through it and come out more whole, not less. It's where we stop being afraid of falling because we trust ourselves to rise. The rising strong process isn't linear, it's messy, unpredictable, and often uncomfortable. But every time we choose to engage with our story instead of running from it, we build trust with ourselves. We become less reactive and more reflective. We get better at asking for what we need, having hard conversations, and making choices that align with our values. And we learn that being stronger than before isn't about being untouched by pain. It's about being changed by it, transformed in a way that deepens our compassion, sharpens our boundaries, and strengthens our ability to stay open to life, even when it's hard. There's a deep human need to belong, to feel seen and accepted, to know that who we are is enough. But the path to belonging is not always the one we expect. We're taught, often subtly and sometimes directly, that in order to belong, we have to fit in. That we need to adjust ourselves to match the group, to say what's acceptable, to be liked, but fitting in is not the same as belonging. In fact, it's the opposite. Fitting in means twisting ourselves into shapes that earn approval. True belonging requires us to stand in our authenticity, even if it means standing alone. Being stronger than before often means walking through a season where we don't feel like we belong anywhere. Where we're no longer willing to betray ourselves for the sake of harmony. Maybe we've lost a community, left a job, ended a relationship, or just outgrown a version of ourselves that no longer fits. It's disorienting, lonely. But in that space, we're invited into something deeper, the wilderness. The wilderness is that place of uncertainty and vulnerability where we no longer have the comfort of the crowd, and we're learning to listen to our own voice again. When I talk about the wilderness, I don't mean solitude for the sake of isolation. I mean the emotional and spiritual space we enter when we stop asking, who do I need to be to fit in, and start asking, who am I really and what do I stand for? The wilderness is the place where we become fiercely ourselves. It's where we stop chasing acceptance and start living from a place of belonging to ourselves first. That doesn't mean we give up on connection. In fact, it's the only path to real connection, because when we abandon ourselves to gain approval, we might be liked, but we're not truly known. This is not easy work. The pressure to conform is real. And when we choose to be authentic, to speak truthfully, live in alignment with our values, to love what we love, even if it's unpopular, we will face resistance. We will be misunderstood. But courage is not about being comfortable. It's about being clear. It's about holding on to our integrity, even when it's inconvenient or lonely. There will be times when we feel like we're on the outside. But if the cost of inclusion is self-abandonment, it's too high a price. Belonging is not passive, it's an active daily practice. It's choosing to believe that we are worthy as we are, that our voice matters, that we don't have to earn our place by shrinking or pretending. It's also recognizing that the people who truly see us, the ones who love us, not in spite of our differences but because of them, are the people who make it safe for us to show up fully. And we get to do that for others, too. When we stop demanding conformity from ourselves, we also stop demanding it from the people around us. So being stronger than before doesn't mean being louder or more forceful. It means being more rooted in who we are. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing that we're aligned with our truth, that we can disagree without disconnecting, that we can be alone without being lost, and that belonging at its core is not something we find in others, it's something we carry with us. When we belong to ourselves, we can walk into any room, any conversation, any moment, not needing to be anyone else. We can stand in our story even when it's uncomfortable and know that the people who matter will meet us there. Shame is one of the most powerful, deeply rooted emotions we experience, and yet it's also one of the least discussed. It's that voice in your head that whispers, "You're not good enough. Who do you think you are?" It's different from guilt, which says, "I did something bad." Shame says, "I am bad." It attacks our identity, our worth, and our sense of belonging, and the truth is, we all experience it. No one is immune. But the difference between people who are able to live full, brave, connected lives and those who feel stuck is not whether or not they feel shame, it's how they respond to it. When we're in a shame spiral, our first instinct is usually to hide. We silence ourselves, we isolate, we overcompensate. We try to become smaller or quieter, or we try to hustle harder and prove our value. Shame thrives in secrecy. It grows in the dark, and the longer we keep it hidden, the more powerful it becomes. But when we bring shame into the light, when we talk about, name it, and meet it with empathy, it begins to lose its grip on us. This is what shame resilience looks like. Not that we stop feeling shame altogether, but that we learn how to move through it without letting it define us. Being stronger than before doesn't mean never feeling shame. It means learning to recognize it when it shows up and choosing not to let it control the story we're telling ourselves. It starts with awareness. The moment we feel that familiar tightening in our chest, the flushed cheeks, the urge to shrink, we can pause and ask ourselves, what's the story I'm telling myself right now? Maybe it's, I'm a failure because I made a mistake, or I don't belong here, or I'll never be enough. These narratives might feel true in the moment, but they're usually driven by fear, not fact. The second part of building shame resilience is reaching out. This is one of the hardest things to do because shame tells us that if people really knew us, if they saw the full unedited version, they'd walk away. But the paradox is that connection is the very thing that heals shame. When we tell someone we trust, "This is what I'm going through," and they respond with empathy, not judgment, the shame starts to dissolve. Empathy is the antidote. It's hearing someone say, "Me too," or "You're not alone," or "That's hard, and I'm still here." Moving through shame is practicing self-compassion. This isn't about letting ourselves off the hook or avoiding responsibility. It's about treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding we'd offer a friend. It's saying, "I'm human, I make mistakes. That doesn't make me unworthy of love and belonging." It's reminding ourselves that imperfection is not something to be hidden, but something that makes us real. We live in a culture that uses shame as a tool to control and punish, especially toward women, parents, people of color, LGBTQ+ folks, and anyone who doesn't fit the dominant mold. Being stronger than before means rejecting the lie that we have to earn our worth. It means saying, "I am enough, even when I mess up, even when I'm still growing." It means standing in our story and refusing to be defined by our worst moment. Shame resilience doesn't mean we never doubt ourselves. It means we've built a practice of returning to truth, connection, and compassion when we do. It's the daily choice to show up, even when we feel unworthy, to speak, even when our voice trembles, to keep our hearts open, even after they've been bruised. And every time we do, we get a little bit stronger, not because we've silenced the shame, but because we've learned we can survive it. And more than survive, we can rise. Wholehearted living is not about perfection, achievement, or having all the answers. It's about engaging in life from a place of worthiness. It's waking up in the morning and thinking, no matter what gets done and how it gets done, I am enough. That belief doesn't come from success or praise. It comes from choosing to live with courage, compassion, and connection as daily practices. Being stronger than before means stepping into our lives, not with fear or striving, but with a deep sense of being grounded in who we are. Even when we're uncertain, even when things are messy, even when it all feels like too much. We are constantly bombarded with messages that tell us we are not enough, not successful enough, not thin enough, not busy enough, not productive enough. We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. We numb with scrolling and overscheduling and perfectionism, all in an effort to avoid the deeper discomfort of feeling like we're falling short. But the truth is, wholeheartedness doesn't come from doing more or being more. It comes from letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we actually are. That's where real strength lives, in the willingness to be seen, to take up space, to say, "This is me," without apology. Practicing wholehearted living means cultivating the courage to show up fully. And that's not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's as quiet as saying no when we're overwhelmed. Sometimes it's asking for help, even when we want to appear self-sufficient. It's giving ourselves permission to rest without guilt. It's allowing joy in without waiting for the other shoe to drop. And it's learning to sit with discomfort without immediately trying to fix it or run from it. That kind of courage, daily, deliberate, often invisible, is what helps us rebuild after hardship in a way that's honest and sustainable. Another piece of wholeheartedness is compassion, not just for others, but for ourselves. We can't give what we don't have. And many of us are so hard on ourselves, so relentless in our internal dialogue, that we would never speak to a friend the way we speak to ourselves. Self-compassion isn't self-indulgent, it's essential. It's saying, "I'm doing the best I can, and that's enough right now." It's creating space for imperfection without letting it unravel our sense of worth. When we treat ourselves with kindness, we're more resilient. We recover faster from setbacks. We're less likely to lash out or shut down. Compassion makes us braver, not weaker. Connection is also at the heart of wholehearted living. But not surface-level connection, the kind that comes from being agreeable or liked. Real connection happens when we're authentic. When we let people see us, not just in our highlight reel, but in the vulnerable, raw, uncertain moments too. That kind of connection requires risk. It requires boundaries. It requires a willingness to be misunderstood or even rejected. But it's also where we find the deep belonging and intimacy that make life meaningful. Living wholeheartedly after pain, disappointment, or loss doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It means integrating the experience into who we are. It means saying, "This changed me, but it didn't break me." It means honoring the past without letting it define the future. And it means choosing every day to lean into life with open hands and an open heart. We stop chasing our worth and start living from it. That shift, subtle but powerful, is how we move from surviving to thriving. We become stronger not by closing ourselves off, but by opening up to life with all its mess, magic, and uncertainty. Growth doesn't happen in the comfort of certainty. It happens in the in-between spaces, those moments when everything feels uncertain, when we've lost our footing, when we don't know what's next. And yet we're still standing. Being stronger than before is not about always knowing where we're going. It's about having the willingness to stay present in the discomfort of the unknown, to trust that we can keep showing up, even when the path isn't clear. We live in a world that glorifies clarity and direction, but transformation often begins with confusion and doubt. Those are not signs we're broken. They're signs we're in process. There is a temptation to rush through hard seasons, to jump straight to resolution, to tie things up neatly so we can move on. But when we skip the uncertainty, we miss the wisdom that only emerges when we stay. The middle of a story, the messy, unresolved, stretching space, is where resilience is built. It's where our character is shaped. It's where we learn to tolerate ambiguity without abandoning ourselves. That ability to sit with uncertainty, to keep going without forcing an outcome, is one of the clearest indicators of emotional maturity, and it is essential to becoming stronger after pain. Courage, in its truest form, is not about heroic action. It's about staying present. It's about not checking out when things get uncomfortable. It's about being willing to say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm still here. When we allow ourselves to remain in the tension instead of numbing, avoiding, or pretending, we create the space for deeper transformation. We stop reacting and start responding. We stop controlling and start listening. And it's in that space, when we're quiet enough to hear ourselves think, that we begin to uncover what matters most. Uncertainty also invites creativity. When the old way no longer works and the new way isn't clear yet, we're invited to imagine something different. That might be a new direction in our work, a new way of relating to others, or a new way of being with ourselves. But imagination doesn't thrive in rigid certainty. It needs room to stretch, to experiment, to try and fail, and try again. And to do that, we need to shift our relationship with failure. Failure isn't proof that we're not enough. It's proof that we're in the arena, that we're daring, risking, and evolving. People who emerge from hard times stronger than before are not people who never fall. They're people who use the fall as a catalyst for deeper learning and wider perspective. This also means rethinking what it means to trust. We often think of trust as a solid, unshakable thing. But the kind of trust that carries us through uncertainty is more fluid. It's the kind of trust that whispers, I don't know what's coming, but I know I can handle it. It's trusting ourselves to feel the hard feelings and not fall apart. Trusting the process, even when it's messy. Trusting that the story isn't over just because we're in a hard chapter. That kind of trust isn't built by avoiding struggle. It's built by walking through it and realizing we are still whole. We find ourselves in seasons of not knowing, when the map has gone blank and we're questioning everything. We can choose to see it not as a failure, but as fertile ground. A space where old assumptions fall away and something new can take root. And while that new thing may not reveal itself right away, the very act of staying open, staying curious, staying kind to ourselves in the middle of the unknown, is what makes us unshakably strong. Because strength is not about having it all figured out. It's about continuing to show up when we don't. Being stronger than before isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who we are. It's the quiet, steady work of rising after the fall, of choosing courage over comfort, truth over perfection, and connection over fear. Strength isn't loud. It doesn't always look like victory or confidence. Sometimes it looks like vulnerability. Sometimes it looks like saying, I need help, or I don't know, or this still hurts. But every time we choose to show up, messy, honest, and real, we are writing a story of resilience. We are saying, this pain didn't break me. It shaped me. And in that story, we don't just survive. We live, love, and lead with deeper compassion, greater clarity, and a heart that knows it is always worthy. That is the true mark of strength. Not that we are unshaken, but that we are still here, more whole than ever,